The rain had just stopped when Harper Bell pulled her 10-year-old sedan into the driveway of 1422 Maple Lane, Ridgeview Estates. The neighborhood looked exactly like the brochures. Identical beige houses with navy shutters. Lawns trimmed to the exact 2.5 inches the covenants demanded, and not a single pink flamingo in sight. She killed the engine and sat there, the scent of funeral lilies still clinging to her black blazer like a bad memory. Her mother, Lydia, had been gone exactly 48 hours, and already the vultures were circling. She had barely unpacked the first box when the knock came. 3 sharp raps, the kind that said, "I own this street." Harper opened the door to Karen Whitaker, president of the Ridgeview HOA for the last 12 years, standing on the welcome mat in a pastel cardigan and pearls, clipboard in one hand like it was the 10 Commandments. Karen's smile was all teeth and zero warmth. "Harper, dear, so sorry for your loss," she cooed, voice dripping with the fake sympathy HOA presidents perfected at potlucks. "But we do have standards. That lawn is already at 2.7 inches. Violation notice number 1. And the moving truck left tire marks on the curb, another $50 fine. We mailed the packet yesterday. You'll want to read section 4.2. New residents must maintain founding family curb appeal at all times." Harper blinked. She had lived here as a child before her mother's first marriage, then moved out at 18. Karen acted like she was some squatter who just crawled in from the highway. "I'm not new," Harper said quietly. "This was my mother's house. I inherited it." Karen's eyes narrowed, the smile never slipping. "Technically, yes, but the covenants are clear, only real, long-term compliant homeowners and their direct lineage enjoy the full community privileges. The new park fund, the pool priority, the rule waiver lottery. We can't have outsiders diluting the standards. My real homeowners built this place. They deserve the perks." She tapped the clipboard. "Sign here acknowledging receipt, or we start the foreclosure process on day 30. For the good of the neighborhood." Of course. Harper signed. She always signed first. 30 years of watching her mother smile through Caleb's, wait, no, through Karen's kind of control had taught her patience was a weapon. She closed the door, leaned against it, and let the rage simmer into something colder, sharper. Karen thought she was just another pushover. She had no idea Lydia had spent 15 years building something far more dangerous than a perfectly edged lawn. 2 days later, the entire board gathered in the community center for the mandatory estate transition meeting. Karen had called it herself, claiming it was standard procedure after a founding resident passes. The room smelled of stale coffee and desperation. Harper sat in the back row, hands folded, while Karen stood at the podium in a power suit that cost more than Harper's car, flanked by her 2 loyal board pets, Tessa and Bryce, the golden twins of Ridgeview, who never once got a fine. Karen cleared her throat, voice honey-sweet for the neighbors, but laced with venom. "As we all know, Lydia's passing leaves certain community assets in flux. The Ridgeview Legacy Endowment, which funds our pool, park, and emergency repairs, must stay in the hands of real homeowners. My real homeowners. Those who have followed every covenant, every fine, every rule without complaint. Outsiders, step-ins, or anyone who thinks they can just inherit their way and well. They simply don't qualify. The perks, the funds, the future of Ridgeview Estates go to my real homeowners and their families. Everything." The silence that dropped was absolute. Tessa smirked. Bryce exhaled like he'd just won the lottery. Harper didn't move. She had heard those exact words before, in different rooms, from different mouths. But this time she was ready, because Lydia had predicted them, word for word, 15 years ago. The meeting ended. Harper walked home through the perfect streets, past houses where neighbors waved, but never really saw her. She waited until midnight, then opened the cream envelope the estate lawyer had pressed in her hand at the funeral reception. Inside was a single key and a note in her mother's looping handwriting. When she says it out loud, "Open the box in the sewing room. The sword is yours now." Harper drove to the storage unit at dawn. The box was plain cardboard, taped with the same red legal cord she remembered from childhood nightmares. Inside, the thick folder labeled Ridgeview Legacy Trust, Hart Family, Irrevocable, and the smaller envelope with her name. She didn't cry. She smiled the small, dangerous smile her mother used to wear when Caleb wasn't looking. The next morning, she called Grant Hallbrook, the same steel-gray lawyer who had handled her mother's affairs for decades. He answered on the first ring. "MS. "Bell," he said, voice calm as always. "I've been expecting you. Shall we schedule the reading?" They met at his downtown office the following Tuesday. The same mahogany table, the same rain tapping the windows. Karen had shown up uninvited, of course, claiming board oversight rights. Tessa and Bryce flanked her like bodyguards. Grant didn't waste time. He slid the thick folder across the table. The Ridgeview Legacy Endowment was established by Lydia Hart 15 years ago. It is completely separate from the HOA operating budget. It holds the original land grant for the common areas, plus 30 years of compounded investments. Current value, $19.6 million. Karen's laugh was brittle. That's absurd. Lydia was a housewife. She clipped coupons. She had nothing. Grant's eyes stayed cold. She had everything, and she hid it in a blind trust so no one, especially not the HOA president who audited every mailbox, could touch it. The trust has one activation clause. If, during any formal community proceeding, the HOA president verbally excludes Harper Bell as a legitimate resident or heir, using exclusionary language that distinguishes real homeowners from her, the entire corpus transfers to Harper Bell as sole trustee. He pressed play on the small recorder he had placed on the table earlier. Karen's voice filled the room. Crystal clear. "My real homeowners and their families outsiders simply don't qualify. The perks go to my real homeowners." The silence was so complete Harper could hear Karen's pearls click as her hand flew to her throat. Grant smiled for the first time. "The clause is met. Congratulations. MS. Bell, you now control the endowment that literally owns the pool, the park, and the land under every common area sidewalk in Ridgeview Estates. And because the HOA has been quietly borrowing against it for years, thinking it was community money, you also hold the notes on every loan Karen Whitaker ever approved for her little pet projects." Karen stood so fast her chair clattered. "This is fraud. I'll contest every inch of it. That trust is community property." Grant's voice never rose. "It's not. And the recording is time-stamped. You just triggered the nuclear option. Madam President, welcome to the rest of your life." Harper finally spoke, voice soft but carrying the weight of 30 quiet years. "You spent 15 years finding my mother for flowers that were one shade too bright. She spent those same years making sure every dime you thought you controlled was actually waiting for this moment. You wanted to erase me from Ridgeview. My mother just made sure I'd own it instead." She stood, envelope in hand, and walked out into the rain. For the first time, the lawns didn't look perfect. They looked like the prison they had always been. And Harper Bell held the keys to every gate. The first fine arrived by certified mail the next morning, $300 for unauthorized emotional distress to the board. Harper almost laughed. Karen was already flailing. By noon, the neighborhood group chat exploded. "Has anyone else received a notice about the new legacy review? Karen says we need to vote on dissolving the old endowment because of legal irregularities." Tessa posted heart emojis. Bryce posted a meme about gold diggers. Harper didn't reply. She simply forwarded the entire chat to Grant with one line. "They're scared. That afternoon, she drove to the community center for the emergency board meeting Karen had called. Every lawn on the way was perfect. Every flag hung at the exact 45-degree angle the covenants required. But the air felt different, thinner, like the neighborhood knew something was coming. Karen stood at the podium again, voice trembling with righteous fury. This so-called trust is an attack on everything we built. Harper is trying to steal the community's future. We must vote to nullify it immediately. Harper sat in the front row this time. She raised her hand politely. Before we vote, may I read one paragraph from the original covenants my mother helped write in 1995? Karen's smile froze. That's irrelevant. Harper, read anyway. Voice steady. Section 9. Any board member who uses exclusionary language against a legitimate heir shall immediately forfeit voting rights and trigger full audit of all financials. The room went still. Harper slid the trust folder onto the table. The audit starts Monday. Every dime Karen spent on her board retreats to the Bahamas. Every golf cart purchase for her personal use. Every time she forgave her own fines but doubled mine. Everything comes out. Tessa whispered. Daddy, Karen, this can't be legal. It is, Harper said. And because the trust owns the land under the pool, I can close it tomorrow if I want. No more summer parties for the real homeowners. No more priority access. No more anything unless I approve it. Karen's face drained of color. You're bluffing. We'll sue. We'll tie this up for years. You'll never see a cent. Harper leaned forward, the same way her mother used to when she was pretending to agree with Caleb. You already spent the last 4 years borrowing against the endowment for your Skyline-style community expansion loans. Those loans are now callable by me. Pay up by Friday, or I foreclose on the common areas. The pool, the park, the playground. Everything becomes mine to sell or repurpose. Bryce stood up, voice cracking. This is insane. Mom, Karen, always said the money was for us. She lied, Harper said softly, just like she lied about my mother being broke. My mother funded every secret fine waiver for the neighbors you bullied. She paid for Tessa's eating disorder therapist when Karen refused to let weakness show on the insurance. She paid Bryce's gambling debts so the bookies wouldn't show up at the HOA meetings. She kept this neighborhood alive while Karen used it as her personal piggy bank. The room erupted in whispers. Mrs. Patterson from 1408, whose hydrangeas had been cited 17 times, stood up slowly. You paid my late husband's medical bills from that fund, didn't you, Harper? Karen told me it was a community grant. Harper nodded once. She did it for all of you. While Karen was writing rules about mailbox colors, my mother was writing checks so none of you would lose your homes. Karen slammed her gavel, actually a pink plastic one she thought looked cute. Order. This is defamation. I want her removed from the premises. No one moved. For the first time in 12 years. The board didn't jump when Karen barked. Harper stood. The trust transfers to me at midnight tonight. Tomorrow morning, I'm calling in the loans. And I'm starting the full forensic audit of every HOA transaction since 2010. Karen, you have until sunrise to resign and repay every dime you embezzled. Otherwise, the entire neighborhood sees the receipts. She walked out to the sound of chairs scraping and neighbors finally daring to speak above a whisper. Behind her, Karen's perfect world was already cracking like the too short grass she loved to measure. The next 48 hours were war by spreadsheet. Karen's lawyers filed an emergency injunction claiming the trust was community property and that the activation clause violated public policy of neighborly love. Harper's phone rang constantly, anonymous numbers threatening to expose her as a gold digger. Tessa leaving sobbing voicemails about how Dad, Karen, will lose everything. Bryce offering a private settlement of $2 million if she dropped the audit. Harper ignored them all. She sat in her mother's old sewing room, the same room where Lydia had hidden the burner phone and the encrypted files and read every receipt Grant had delivered in the banker's box. Her mother had tracked everything. The $3,000 ballet camp for Tessa that Karen claimed was self-funded, the $7,000 wire to offshore bookies for Bryce. The $200 birthday cash slipped into Harper's mailbox when she was 22 and eating ramen for dinner. Every time Harper thought she had escaped the shadow of Ridgeview, her mother had been there, quietly paying the toll so her daughter could keep her dignity. The realization hurt worse than any fine Karen had ever issued. Grant called at 2 a.m. They just dumped 10 gigabytes of discovery hoping we drown. But our forensic team already found the skyline parallel. Karen pledged future endowment funds as collateral for her personal lake house renovation loan 3 years ago. While your mother was dying, Karen was borrowing against money that wasn't hers. It's criminal fraud. Harper stared at the rain hitting the window, the same rain that had fallen the day of the funeral. How fast can we move? Fast enough that she wakes up tomorrow to frozen accounts and a sheriff's notice on the community center door. Harper smiled into the dark. Do it, but keep the audit sealed for now. I don't want to destroy the neighborhood. I want to destroy the lie that Karen owns it. Dawn broke with process servers at Karen's door. The neighborhood watched from behind perfectly parted curtains as 2 deputies taped the official notice to the community center entrance. Ridgeview Legacy Endowment under new trusteeship. Pool closed until further notice. Karen stood on her porch in a bathrobe, pearls still around her neck, screaming into her phone while Tessa and Bryce tried to calm her. Harper watched from her own porch, coffee in hand. The first time she had ever felt the morning sun on Maple Lane without checking for violations. Her phone buzzed Grant again. They're panicking. Karen just filed the public policy motion claiming the clause punishes free speech. She wants the judge to void the entire trust because a single sentence can't control millions. Harper laughed once, short and sharp. She just handed us the courtroom recording on a silver platter. The hearing was set for Friday. For 3 days, the neighborhood split like a lawn under a mower. Half the residents, those who had received secret help from Lydia, quietly started mowing their grass at 2.4 inches in solidarity. The other half, Karen's loyalists, posted passive-aggressive signs, protect our values, vote NO on the outsider takeover. Harper stayed silent. She spent the nights reading her mother's hidden journal, the one labeled simply for Harper when I'm gone. Page after page of quiet fury. Karen cited me today for the American flag being 2 inches too high. I smiled and wrote the check for the pool fund instead. One day my daughter will cash it. Tessa came to me crying about her weight again. Karen told her to stop being dramatic. I paid for the therapist. Karen will never know. Each entry ended the same way. If she ever says the words, my real homeowners, give Harper the sword. Friday morning, the courtroom smelled of lemon polish and fear. Karen arrived in full widow weeds, black suit, black veil, playing the grieving community leader. Tessa and Bryce sat behind her like matching bookends. Harper sat alone with Grant, the thick folder on the table between them. The judge, a no-nonsense woman who had clearly dealt with HOAs before, called the session to order. Karen's lawyer opened with theatrical outrage. Your Honor, this clause is punitive. It punishes a single emotional statement made in the heat of transition. It destroys the very fabric of community harmony. Grant stood. Then let's hear the statement in context. You press play. Karen's voice filled the courtroom exactly as it had filled the community center. My real homeowners outsiders simply don't qualify. The perks go to my real homeowners and their families. The judge's eyebrows rose. Karen's veil slipped. Grant followed with the email chain, dated 3 days before the funeral, in which Karen had instructed her accountant to reclassify personal spa days as community wellness expenses against the endowment. Then the loan documents showing she had pledged future endowment distributions for her lake house mortgage. The judge didn't even let the defense finish. Motion to void denied. The trust is valid. The trigger was lawful. MS. Bell is now sole trustee. Furthermore, this court finds prima facie evidence of embezzlement and fraudulent conveyance. I am referring the matter to the district attorney and ordering an immediate, unsealed forensic audit of the entire HOA from 2010 forward. Karen stood, voice cracking for the first time. You can't do this. The neighborhood will collapse. The judge looked at her over her glasses. The neighborhood survived you for 12 years. It will survive the truth. Outside the courthouse, Karen cornered Harper on the steps, voice low and venomous. You think you've won? I'll drag this through every appeal. I'll make sure every neighbor knows you're the greedy stepdaughter who stole their pool. Harper looked at the woman who had measured her mother's grass with a ruler while Lydia paid her secret bills. You already stole their dignity. I'm just giving it back. And if you keep talking, the next recording I play will be the one where you told Tessa her therapy was weakness and then used the endowment to pay your own Botox. Karen's mouth opened, closed, then opened again like a fish on dry land. Tessa, standing 10 feet away, heard every word. Her face went white. That night, the group chat lit up again, this time with screenshots of the court order. Mrs. Patterson posted the first thank you. My hydrangeas are finally safe. Thank you, Harper, and thank you, Lydia, wherever you are. The mediation room smelled of burnt coffee and desperation. Karen sat across the circular table in the same power suit. But the pearls were gone, pawned. Harper suspected. Tessa and Bryce flanked her, both looking like they hadn't slept since the hearing. Grant sat beside Harper, calm as ever. Karen's new lawyer slid a single sheet across the table. $5 million. Lump sum. You drop the audit. Sign an NDA. And the pool reopens. Everyone wins. Harper didn't touch the paper. Counteroffer. 1. You resign immediately with prejudice. 2. You issue a public apology to every resident you find in a poverty. 3. You repay every embezzled dollar plus interest. 4. The audit stays public, so no future Karen can ever do this again. Karen laughed, harsh, broken. An apology? To a dead woman and her charity case daughter? I built this neighborhood. You bankrupted it, Harper said quietly. My mother kept it alive. Every time you cited someone for a faded flag, she quietly paid their fine from the trust. Every time you threatened foreclosure on a widow, she wired the money. She protected your victims while you protected your image. Tessa suddenly spoke, voice shaking. The therapy, the eating disorder bills. You told me insurance covered it. You told me I was just dramatic. But Mom, Lydia, paid cash so Dad, Karen, wouldn't see it on the statements. Bryce looked at his hands. The gambling debts in college, you said you handled it. You made me work construction all summer to pay you back. It was her money. All of it. Karen's face twisted. She was weak. She let me run things. That's what wives, what board members do. Harper leaned forward. She wasn't weak. She was patient. She waited 15 years for you to say the exact words you said in that meeting. And now the sword is in my hand. The lawyer tried to salvage it. We can seal the audit. Protect the children's, the board members' privacy. Harper shook her head. The secret stays sealed only if you sign my terms. Otherwise, the whole neighborhood learns that Karen Whitaker refused to help her own golden residents while using their dues for lake house renovations. Silence stretched. Bryce broke first. Dad, Karen, sign it. Please. I can't lose the house. Tessa was crying openly. She paid for my life. You never paid for anything except your own ego. Karen stared at Harper with pure hatred. I will never apologize to a ghost. Then we go to trial, Harper said. And when the audit drops, you won't just lose the presidency. You'll lose the house, the car, The reputation you killed for. The DA is already reviewing the fraud referral. Karen stood so fast the chair tipped. This isn't over. But it was. She stormed out. Tessa and Bryce stayed behind, looking smaller than their perfect lawns had ever made them seem. Grant closed his briefcase with a soft click. She just walked into the propeller. The final hearing was 3 weeks later. The courtroom was packed. Every neighbor Harper had ever seen at block parties now sat in the gallery. Phones ready. Karen arrived in an ill-fitting suit. No pearls. No smile. The judge didn't waste time. The forensic audit is complete. It reveals systematic embezzlement of over $400,000, fraudulent loan pledges against trust assets, and multiple instances of forged signatures on community documents. The no contest clause is triggered. All legal fees are assessed personally against Karen Whitaker. Karen's lawyer tried one last Hail Mary. Your Honor, leniency. Leniency was offered in mediation. The judge cut in. She refused. Ms. Bell, the trust is yours. The HOA board is dissolved pending new elections. The common areas remain under your trusteeship until a new compliant board is seated. Harper stood. I have one request. The audit stays public, but I will not sell the pool or the park. I will simply rewrite the covenants. No more measuring grass with rulers. No more citations for flags. No more real homeowners versus everyone else. Ridgeview becomes a place where people live, not a kingdom. The gavel fell. The gallery erupted in applause, real applause. Not the polite HOA clapping Karen used to demand. Outside, neighbors surrounded Harper. Mrs. Patterson hugged her first. My hydrangeas, thank you. The single dad from 1415 shook her hand. My kids can finally play in the park without a fine for running too loud. Tessa approached last. Eyes red. I'm moving out. I don't know how to be poor, but I know I don't want to be her anymore. Thank you for what Lydia did for me. Harper handed her a single envelope, the therapy receipts. Nothing else. She loved you. Not because you were perfect, because you were hers while she was here. Bryce never came. He had already listed his house. That evening, Harper walked Maple Lane at sunset. The grass was every length imaginable. Someone had planted pink flamingos in 3 yards. Flags flew at crazy angles. The pool gate stood open, kids screaming with joy for the first time in years. She stopped at her mother's old sewing room window and whispered to the empty glass. I got the sword, Mom, and I used it to cut the chains, not the people. Inside the house, the banker's box still sat on the table. Harper opened the final yellow sticky note her mother had left on the very bottom document. If she ever says it, give Harper the sword. Then tell her to use it to build, not burn. Harper smiled, folded the note, and placed it in the frame beside her mother's picture. Outside, the neighborhood lights came on, every porch light exactly the same wattage. But no one cared anymore. For the first time in 34 years, Harper Bell wasn't a guest in her own life. She was the landlord, and Ridgeview Estates was finally, truly, home.